I want you to meet two gentlemen who are joining us this morning to walk through today's events. Daryl Hawkins is a former Clermont County Sheriff's Deputy and Assistant Prosecutor who now works with the Coroner's Office. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Yes, and also Dan Cott, a former Cincinnati police officer who has been involved with Clermont County law enforcement for the past several years. We thank you both so much for being with us. If I could start with you, I know you both knew Deputy Brewer. Give us your thoughts, if you would, Dan.
Well, Deputy Brewer was one of several officers that were honored 2 years ago at our Clermont Law Enforcement Appreciation Banquet. And their acts of bravery, heroism, their detective work is beyond measure, and we were happy to honor them then, and this is just an unimaginable tragedy.
Speaking about that, we're going to take you inside because the service is beginning.
Ohio. Two police officers came under fire responding to a call that was believed to be an attempted suicide. It instead turned out to be an ambush. The gunman lured Detective Bill Brewer, who's remembered in this photo, along with Lieutenant Nick DeRose. He lured them into his home where he proceeded to fire at both deputies through a wall. Lieutenant Nick DeRose was injured, and Detective Bill Brewer gave his life in the line of duty. Detective Brewer died trying to help a member of his community, as he always strived to do. I pray that God will bring comfort to his family, to his wife, Jamie, and his young son, Braxton, and to my friend, Sheriff Leahy, and the Clermont County Sheriff's Department, and all of those in our community grieving this loss. I pray for a speedy recovery for Lieutenant Nick DeRose. And while God has called Bill Brewer away from us, the positive effects of his works in this lifetime shall never perish. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does he?
This has been a long, demanding, and emotional week for many of us. Those things once thought important have been put aside temporarily so that we can do what we want to do, that important task of taking care of Bill, Jamie, Braxton, and the family. Sheriff Leahy. Deputies, COs, staff, commissioners, dignitaries, law enforcement officers, first responders, your families, and the multiple agencies. It has been through your presence that you are showing and continue to show your support for Bill, for Jamie, and the family. The outpouring of support shown from the citizens and businesses of this community have been heart-welling as well. Jamie, Braxton, Mr. and Mrs. Brewer, Mr. and Mrs. Knoll, Michael, nieces and nephews. We can only feel part of your pain, but our lives have been changed forever as well. It's times like these that we find ourselves being overwhelmed with more questions than we have answers. One way that we can begin that important task of recovering is to look up, look out, and about us find those who love us and are waiting to support us. Ecclesiastes 4 shares this insight. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, the other can help them up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But pity the one who has no one to help them warm. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. This is one of those defining moments in our lives when many will look upon us and see how we do. Our words and actions, for some, could be interpreted as what to expect from this point on. Therefore, as we all seek ways of coping, there needs to be a positive plan. One that will help us to remain individuals and agencies that do what you do best: care, serve, and yes, sacrifice for a better world and community. Bill and Nick knew this. Jesus shared this parable about the wise and foolish builders regarding some of the choices we make. Therefore, he said, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like the foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. We all need a solid foundation to stand on when life becomes overwhelming. We find our greatest help comes from those past experiences that have helped us to cope when those challenges come and confront us. We are at such a place in our life now. When you feel yourself pressed against the wall, don't give up or give in too quickly. Your repetitive training, called muscle memory, use it to endure and regain that will to be better mentally, physically, and spiritually. It doesn't take long to learn that there is always that risk of getting hurt when you reach out to help someone. It happens when you care for something more than yourself. You just naturally take that risk. I feel each one here and those listening can understand this. It's times like this that we may forget we have chosen the profession we're in, because we are about making a better world for ourselves, our families, and others. You have trained well, whether you came in as a new recruit or by bringing in past experiences that you have gained. You have kept that training up because it is important. Nick knows this. Bill knew this. As officers and first responders, you know this. And because of this, you are a credit to your profession. To borrow a bit of wisdom that I heard this week, if you have ever flown on an airplane after boarding and the door has shut, You hear the flight attendant share and demonstrate that in the event of an emergency, put on your oxygen mask first, and then you are best equipped to help others around you. If you haven't done that symbolically this week, please do so now. Relax, and then you will be better able to go about the task you are on. This week has produced feelings and thoughts within us that seek to change who we are or want to be. That's why it's important to take that breath, regroup, and step back. This is something I have had to do personally this week. So I went to my refuge in my time of need, God's Word. I offer this reflection in hope that it can help you as well. During Jesus' trial before Pilate, Pilate asked Jesus, "You are a king then?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, that is the reason I was born and came into the world, is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. That is the question for us today. What is truth? God's Word can help us here, I believe. From Romans 10:30, it shares these words. "For we know him who said, 'It is mine to avenge. I will repay.' And again, 'The Lord will judge his people.' It is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of a living God." So what does God require of us during such a time like this? Micah 6:8 shares what God requires of us: to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Jesus has offered this: "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Jamie shared with me that throughout their marriage, and for her now, that the Beatitudes have been very important for her and Bill as a way of strength and comfort. I would like to share those words with us now. Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Let us pray. Eternal and everlasting Father, you have seen, you have felt the heartache, and the tiredness and the yearnings for understanding, for comfort, for peace. Throughout this week, many of the things have eluded most of us, but you haven't. We thank you for the presence of your Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, that we have felt and continue to feel your presence before us, with us. For you have said that in our weakness you are our strength. Be that strength for us today, for Jamie, Braxton, the Brewers, the Knowles, the nieces and nephews, for all here who are able to reach out to you and say, we need you, Father. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your presence as you go before us and sustain us. And this I ask and believe in Jesus' name. Amen.
I never imagined I would be behind this podium speaking to a group regarding something like this. My name is Steve Leahy. I'm the Clermont County Sheriff. And to all members of the Brewer family, on behalf of Clermont County Sheriff's Office, I extend my deepest and heartfelt condolences to you. Today we honor the memory of Deputy Bill Brewer, who lived full of enthusiasm for his family, his friends, and for his fellow officers. Bill could always be counted on to do the right thing. Knowing Bill was around just made me feel better. Bill was dedicated to protecting and helping those less fortunate and in need of assistance. This would be the guy I would want to show up if my family members were in need. Bill gave his life as he lived it, as a hero. Bill is gone from us today, but his life and service will never be forgotten. To Bill's family, there are no words capable of providing sufficient comfort. All we can do and will do is pledge undying support and promise to be by your side from this moment forward. The wounds caused by Bill's sudden death will never completely heal, and the void cannot be filled. All we can do is honor him by carrying on his legacy and leading our lives as an example for others to follow. I keep remembering a Bible verse, greater love hath no man this, that he laid down his life for others. Bill laid down his life in a supreme act of devotion to those most precious to him. His example of compassion, honor, and bravery will never be forgotten. May God bless Deputy Bill Brewer, his family, and his fellow officers. I apologize if I don't get through this without breaking down. I've been getting asked a lot lately, how are you doing? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you taking care of yourself? And the answer is no, not at all. I'm a mess. I'm a wreck. I'm devastated. But just like all of you, how can I not be when I know that Bill's family is not okay, when my staff is not okay? I've made some other notes to speak about, and I was reminded that I'm going to be in a church today speaking, and I'm going to take that in consideration. But the chaplain told me it was okay, so I've prepared some notes and statements, so I'm sorry if I jump around today like fleas on a cat's ass. But I have so many things racing through my head. I can tell you what, preparing the words that I have and will speak of today, they have been written on everything from napkins to property deeds to tax documents laying around my house. So I hope the IRS doesn't look at my return this year because they'll look like it and think, what the hell? This looks like something out of a scene of, out of A Beautiful Mind. If you remember that with Russell Crowe? I've been writing all over everything. You know, I awoke the other morning crying unconditionally, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm in my 50s, and I've only cried 4 times in the last 30 years. The birth of my son, the death of my father, the death of my mother, and now Bill. I think of how many missed opportunities for me to show people that I cared, that I am human. To all the families in the county that I tried to be strong for and put my cop face on during your time of need and tragedy, I'm sorry. To what's left of my family, I am sorry. To my staff and co-workers, I'm sorry. To everyone I never said I love you to or to them enough, I'm sorry. To my son who tells me every night and every day, I love you, and I mumble back, I'm sorry. To all of you here today, don't put on your cop face and try to be strong. You don't want to look weak because you don't want to look weak and cry. For God's sake, don't take your loved ones for granted. Don't mumble back when someone tells you that they love you. To this community, you should mourn Deputy Bill Brewer. You should be proud of all these fine men and women here today who serve you in this county. They are all wonderful. You're lucky to have them. I thank you. My office thanks you for your support, encouragement, generosity, and love during this hard time. To the first responders who were there Saturday and Sunday, I thank you. I appreciate you more now, more than ever. You're truly amazing people. Please come introduce yourself wherever you find me, other than a restroom, so I can shake your hand and thank you personally. To the other local law enforcement in the county, thank you for picking up the slack. Thank you for making this work and for just being there. You're so important. I hope you do realize that. To the men and women of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the Cincinnati Police Department who were at both hospitals, you showed me what wonderful people you are, and I thank you for your compassion, and I thank you for your professionalism. To the Cincinnati Police SWAT, my office is forever indebted to you. I'm forever indebted to you. Your officers responded to our call for help. You answered that call without hesitation. You saved us the agony of doing more of these. After it was all over, I tried to meet each one of you and shake your hands and thank you, but I was unable to do so. We did take care of that today. I made sure that they were here invited to this, and I appreciate you coming. To our county special response team, that's our SWAT team. You demonstrated professionalism and brotherhood on what it's all about. I have never witnessed anything like that in my entire career. You are the best. To Doug Ventry, I'll never be able to repay you. I thank you for answering that call and coming out Saturday. Nick DeRose, I believe in you. We believe in you. You have my complete support and 100% of my confidence. I am with you. I love you. Get healthy. To Paul, Jeff, Chris, Greg, you're outstanding men and you've made this possible today. I appreciate it. Our office appreciates you. To the men and women in my office, I'm not sure where to start, so here it is. I've never felt more pain in my entire life, but I've never seen so much pain in so many faces at one time. I apologize to all of you from the bottom of my heart that you're feeling like this. You know, we're not a small office, but we're not a big office, but we're over 200 strong. So we know each other, we go on vacations together, we celebrate birthdays together, We welcome new babies. We go to weddings. We support one another through divorces. I've been there. We cheer for one another when we lose 5 pounds, and we laugh when they gain 10 of it back. Hell, we even talk about our own IBS. So something like this rocks our world, will be forever changed. This community is forever changed. But we will never forget Bill, and we will never forget his family. We will get through this because babies will be born, birthdays will be celebrated, vacations will be taken, pounds will be gained again, and yes, we'll still talk about our IBS. To those that would do us harm, that would advocate violence against us, to that asshole in my jail, I have 2 words for you on behalf of Bill's family, this county, my office, and all the cops across this country. Screw you. Now that may come of a surprise to some of you for me to talk like that, because I actually use a lot worse language than that, but I did want to tone it down here because of the children being here, and we are in church. I sent a request out from to my office, and I asked them to put together some comments and statements about Bill. And they all responded in kind, and there's a lot of really good stuff here, but a lot of it's very, very personal, and I did not want to read it here because I don't think I could get through it. But I did put it in this container here, and I'm going to give it to the family. I want you to take this and read it when you get a chance, and you'll really know what Bill meant to all of us. Well, this is the end. In the words of a famous man, I'm pretty tired. I think I'll go home now.
Well, it sounds like they are dismissing people from the church. They said the family wanted some quiet time there.
We also learned from the sheriff how not necessarily small this department is, but how close they are.
Well, it is an extremely small department when you look at our next door neighbors of Cincinnati. Everybody literally knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's family. Like I said, the sheriff's office is, rather than having multiple districts like Cincinnati PD has, the sheriff's office is in one building, and not a huge building at that. And these guys just cross paths daily. It's just impossible for them not to have really close contacts. And it's Sheriff Leahy, Steve, as I know him, obviously is extremely emotional, and he doesn't hide his emotions all that well.
He's very raw and real.
And that's the way he is. And I can't tell you how I've been involved in law enforcement in Clermont County for over 40 years. And as everybody can say, I'm an old man, but the quality of these individuals has just absolutely grown in leaps and bounds. I see these men and women every day. It seems like in my contact through the coroner's office, and then prior to that, the prosecutor's office. And these are people that you can be proud of.
And none of these people who are in that service currently are used to having a death in
No.
the line of duty.
No. We were talking about that earlier, and the only deaths we've had in Clermont County of law enforcement officers back in the 40s, there was a game warden or natural resource officer, whatever they were called at that time, that was murdered in the southern part of the county. And then in the 60s, the only other on-duty death was of Deputy Sammy Revere, who was investigating a homicide with Prosecutor Bob Jones, or assistant prosecutor at that time, later prosecutor. They were coming out of New Richmond on 132, and Revere's convertible, and an animal, a horse, had gotten loose, and they struck it coming up the hill out of New Richmond, and he lost his life. And for years, that was it.
Yeah.
Very few shootings out there involving law enforcement, and certainly no deaths. So this really hit home.
You know, we were talking about Sheriff Leahy, and you and I, Dan, were sitting here sort of in amazement because, you know, talked about him being raw and real, and he was very witty too. Were you surprised, though, when he addressed the suspect in a very derogatory term and said the message to him was, "Screw you"? Did that surprise you, his words?
It's a little out of the ordinary, but I can just feel the emotions coming through. Nothing like this has ever happened in Clermont County. How do you deal with that? So I'm sure those are the things that are going through his mind and his heart.
It was powerful, wasn't it?
Yes.
His speech?
Very much.
Yeah. A short service too, Rob. Don't you
It was.
think?
I found that interesting. Yeah, they told us that's the way it was going to be. That's the way the family wanted it. The family now is spending some of their own time privately. We are assuming that the crowd is leaving the auditorium at the moment. And there's as many as 1,000 vehicles in this procession today. The procession route is equally lengthy. It leads from the church at Back Buxton and Clough Pike down Clough toward Batavia, passing the Batavia Township Community Center, and that is where the sheriff's substation is, where the Deputy Brewer spent many years. It will then proceed into Batavia, turning onto Main Street and then heading west on State Route 32. That leads to 275, where it will travel south to the Beachmont Avenue exit. And from there, it will head east on Merwin 10 Mile before turning into the Pierce Township Cemetery. School is closed today in Deputy Brewer's hometown of Williamsburg, as well as West Clermont, Batavia, and New Richmond also closed. Those students and their families are being encouraged to line the procession route to pay their respects, and I suspect that's what we're going to see today.
Yes, and as we were noting earlier, thank goodness today it's dry, because yesterday obviously rained all day. And even though it's chilly today, I suspect we'll see a lot of people out there. And when the procession gets to Batavia, to the substation where Detective Brewer worked for some time or spent a lot of time there, they're going to pause, and there'll be a special little sort of ceremony there. We'll bring that to you when that happens.
Well, I think the substation at is on the hill south of Batavia, probably a couple miles, and then I think where they're going to do the other ceremony will be down in Batavia,
Yes.
but I'm not positive.
Okay. You know, when the service was going on, you were both making comments about Deputy Brewer, that he was a quiet sort of man, and you also said that he was someone who had almost perfect attendance, right? I mean, I think there was a 6-year stretch where he never missed a day of work.
It's amazing. This is from my friends at the sheriff's office. This is just his commendations.
Wow.
and letters from the public. And you know, Dan and I both know from our experience in law enforcement, it's unusual that police officers are complimented to this degree. He was just a very quiet, unassuming individual. You knew when he spoke to listen. But I have heard from the top down. I don't have any contact with Sheriff Van Camp anymore. I wish I did, but of course he's getting quite elderly. And but I did hear from Chief Deputy Rick Combs, the former Chief Deputy, who was the Chief Deputy when Brewer was hired. Of course, he was promoted out of the jail, the corrections officer first, and then came over, which a lot of the deputies are. But just everybody that I've talked to shared the same sentiment and knowledge I had of Bill. You know, very quiet, professional. He's the kind of guy that if you were a father and you had a daughter, you'd want her to bring home to you. he's literally a man that the community can be proud of. Him and Nick DeRose both. Of course, Nick's kind of getting lost a little bit in the shuffle here. But I don't know if people are aware of the fact Nick DeRose got released from the hospital. He went right back to the sheriff's office.
Right, on crutches.
Yes.
He was in court the next day too.
Yes.
Yeah. He
So I
certainly
mean,
was.
this is a tight group.
These are the kind of men you want talking to an individual who was having these struggles that this man
Exactly.
was.
Well, we were talking. You and I were talking earlier about your dad and my respect for your dad, and the comments you made about your dad. The same kinds of things could be said for Detective Brewer.
Yeah.
He was just that kind of personality.
And really the kind of person you want all law enforcement officers to emulate, right?
Yes.
Oh, if
he
you could
was
have 100 like, it'd be great.
a real role model.
Yeah.
And when you think of the ripple effect of something like this that you just saw from the school where his son attends, and you're seeing through the community and the outpouring and the entire country, so much support. The ripple effect is something that'll be going on for years.
We're going to check in with Adam. He's outside of the sanctuary here, where I'm assuming that the people are leaving now. Adam, is that true?
Yeah, behind us, you can't really tell if people are coming out yet. That's the church, but people are coming out, officers predominantly coming out of the high school where they had two separate viewing areas, one in the auditorium, one in the cafeteria here at the West Clermont High School, where I would say close to 1,000, if not more, officers and law enforcement from really all over. I don't know if you heard us earlier, but Scott Spiker with West Clermont School District said he saw an officer from as far away as Sarasota, Florida. So, they come out in droves to show their support for their brothers in blue. One of those coming from Middletown, I had a chance to speak with Detective Brandon Hiley, who was here, and he spoke a little bit about the importance of showing up and showing your support in times like these. Take a listen.
I think it's no secret to any of us that anybody that puts on a gun and badge every day we consider a brother and sister, and especially with the world the way it is today, we need each other, and the showing that we have here is obviously a lot, but it doesn't surprise me.
When one goes down, you all feel it.
Absolutely. Seems like there's been a lot here more recently also, and it hurts, but it makes it a lot easier whenever we support each other like this, so we're happy to be here.
For Detective Brewer's wife and his child, a day like this is a day they'll never forget. I'm sure it'll be a blur, though. How important it is to them that they feel the love and support from the community and from the local law enforcement community.
It's huge, and hopefully they know that we're there for them. I know there's already some funding coming in to help support the family, and anything that Middletown Police Department can do for them, we'd be happy to help as well.
And in terms of the public showing support, how vital is that how important is it for you to see, to know that, you're going to see people lining the streets as this procession goes, through town, an unfortunate reminder that, you guys are valued.
Yeah. We appreciate all the support we can get. Even though I never met Officer Brewer, I've gotten several messages just from friends and families of mine just saying, hey, I'm sorry you guys lost another one. That's the kind of relationship we all have with one another.
Back here live now outside of the West Clermont High School, where officers are starting to exit the building. This parking lot behind me is completely packed to capacity with cruisers. There's another parking lot behind the camera on the other side of the school that's also packed. This is strictly reserved for law enforcement who are coming here, first responders, to show their support. Again, only about 550, I believe, can be seated inside the church. So here at the school, that's where the majority of that overflow happened. Also here viewing the services for Detective Brewer, the family of Jason Ellis. He's the Bardstown police officer who's from Clermont County, the Union Township area. He was shot and killed in an ambush not 6 years ago, just about 6 years ago. His mother and his two sisters, they are here. They are showing their support, and this is something that's difficult for them, but they said that they wanted to pay it forward. They wanted to be here to show the support for the Brewer family, just as so many members of the law enforcement community, as well as just the community in general, showed support for them when Jason was killed. Take a listen. This is an interview you will see only on Local 12. Unfortunately, you guys know this day all too well. What is What is this family going through today?
Numbness. Today will be a blur for them. It will also be overwhelming support. It's a brotherhood like we've never experienced before. It's a caring like we've never seen before. It's an experience like you will never experience. Just for us being here and bringing it all back, the police officers, and what we're seeing here today is what we experienced. We were shown such support
and love from the community.
That now that we are going through this in the community where we live, we're just thankful that we can pay back.
And it's been, what, 6 years now?
6 years.
Since you lost Jason.
And I cried every day this week.
How hard is a week like this when you have to relive it?
It's very hard because I understand what this girl's going through. And you'll never be able to bring them back. But again, like Kelly said, with the love and the support of the community and police officers, it's a brotherhood. I mean, I've been hugged and kissed and since I've been here. And, eventually all this is going to go away for her, and she's still going to need the love and the support of family and friends in the community and the police officers. And I will say this, the one thing about the brotherhood, no matter where she's at, they'll be there for her.
How important, kind of speaking to that, a day like this, walking in and seeing hundreds and hundreds of men and women in uniform. What is that like for you, and how does it go toward really making this family feel that love and support?
I keep saying over and over, I said it takes me back straight to the day. I'm walking her footsteps just in a different light. It's humbling to see them come. It's remembering what they did for us. The overwhelming support is almost too much at times. But as a family who's gone through it and as a family who is still walking these footsteps, because it doesn't end. It's not a story. These are our lives that we live every single day. And to know that you're always going to have people that are willing to put their arms around you is really priceless.
I'm going to put my arms around you.
No.
All right. Ladies, go get warm.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, really powerful stuff, really candid stuff, to hear from that family after all they've been through, knowing what this family is going through right now. I also had a chance to speak with Clermont Township Police Chief Denny, who had just gone through this similar with Officer Dale Woods just weeks ago. And he talked about how it was still fresh. He couldn't even really go back and watch. He just now got around to watching our broadcast of the funeral services, and says it still hurts every single day. Back here live in front of the church, you can see some folks have begun to kind of walk. This isn't an area where you see a lot of people walking the streets, so these people clearly here for Detective Brewer to pay their respects. But in terms of foot traffic, we really haven't seen a lot of it out in front of the school, in front of the church here. I would imagine along the route when you get towards Batavia, more walkable conditions, I would imagine you'd see more people lining the streets. But that's not to say that there hasn't been a tremendous amount of support here with more than 1,000 officers from all over the country here paying their respects to Detective Brewer here before he is laid to rest. Reporting live at West Clermont High School, Adam Clements, Local 12 News. For now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Adam, thank you. And that was a great interview with the family of Jason Ellis.
Yeah, we never heard from them
right,
before.
I don't
It was
think we have.
fascinating to hear what they're going through.
But they talked about the community support. There is that, obviously. There's also the support of the organization, The Shield, which I know really comes out during these tragic times and helps the family out. Talk about The Shield, if you would.
The Shield's been in existence for perhaps 15 or 20 years in the greater Cincinnati area, and they're there to be there right away, right now, for the families of the fallen officer. In Sonny Kim's case, they brought in his family from Korea, which was a tremendous gesture, and they housed them, took care of them while they were here for the services.
Whatever their immediate needs are, The Shield is there.
That's the key.
And it's made up of former law enforcement officers, current law enforcement officers?
Both.
Okay.
Yes. and a lot of donations from anywhere.
Yeah, and it might be a good time to note that if you're interested in helping the family, there are some things set up. Obviously, there's a GoFundMe. We've talked about that. But also Park National Bank in Amelia, if people want to go there, right, Daryl?
Correct. Yeah, I think the county got that set up this week because a lot of people don't like the idea of the GoFundMe page taking a percentage, and
Right.
even if a small percentage, but the county got that set up. And it's, going back to the Ellis family, see all these people, I don't know that the community at large is aware of the fact that all these people have such a tight connection to Clermont County, like
Yeah.
Jared Lee a couple weeks ago.
From Clear Creek
From
Township.
Clear Creek Township, and I was out on that death investigation. And this is, people, sometimes forget about, it's just kind of amazing what, as the mayor of Williamsburg the other day was talking about the number of people from Williamsburg that were in public service, law enforcement, EMS, fire department, and of course Williamsburg's the old county seat of Clermont County from way back when. But it's just Clermont County's grown leaps and bounds, but it's still such a small community. People know everybody. I've got, I can't tell you how many people walked up to me that I don't recognize. Well, of course, part of it's age, but I don't recognize, but know me and know the people that I know and talk about these guys. And I just can't tell you how proud I am of the first responders in Clermont County and in Hamilton County. I know it's the same people because we draw from the same population. The quality of the people, and I'll tell you another interesting thing: the close connection. I worked with the former chief deputy when he first got hired at the sheriff's office as a corrections officer years and years and years ago, Rick Combs, and I also worked many years with Sergeant Dave Shepard, who was they're both now, of course, retired from law enforcement, but Chief Combs' daughter, Caitlin, was on the paramedic squad that treated Bill and transported him to the hospital.
You find that a lot. This
Small world.
So close.
Yeah.
And Dave Shepard's daughter was tasked to go to the Brewer house and get Mrs. Brewer and Braxton and take him to the hospital.
Wow.
That's every place you go. It's just a very tight knit community.
Yeah. We're going to check in with Anjanette Levy now. She's in Batavia Township at the community center. There is a substation for the sheriff's office there, and Deputy Brewer worked there for many, many years. Anjanette?
That's right, Rob. Deputy Brewer did work here in patrol for many years. Very loved in this community. As you can see, there are a lot of people who came out today. They watched the funeral service inside the community center, and now they are lining the procession route here on Clough Pike. Jason Case is one of the people who's come out with his family. Jason, why did you all feel the need to come out today? Obviously, you want to show your support for Deputy Brewer's family and the sheriff's office.
Well, this was just a small way for us to honor and respect the life of Officer Brewer and to just thank him for his devotion to our community. But more personally, my kids are at Holly Hill Elementary School, and Officer Brewer was a regular there. And it's there where he would read stories at story time, he'd sit with them at lunch and play with them at recess. And so, you look at just an amazing guy that we're honoring here today. So that's why we wanted to come out.
Oh, wow, that is great. Can we talk to the kids? Is that okay? What is your name?
Mara.
Do you remember Deputy Brewer? What can you tell us about your experiences with him at the school?
He ate lunch with me and he swang with me at recess.
He swang with you at recess? That's pretty nice. Like in his uniform and everything?
Mm-hmm.
But he was too big for the swings, wasn't he?
I bet he was. He's a fit guy. So that's pretty nice that he would do that to get on the swings with you guys. What else do you remember about him?
He read books to us.
Really? Oh, wow, that is so great. Was that a regular thing that he did with you all?
Almost every week he'd do it.
Really? Oh, that is so nice. This has to be so sad for you then, because you're young. How old are you?
9.
You're 9. So are you about in the 4th grade? Yeah. So you're a young girl, you're 4th grade, so this must be really hard. Has this been hard at school all week?
We raised $1,000 to give to his family.
That is so nice. And how does that make you feel to kind of do something nice for his family?
Feels really nice too.
Yeah, well, that is so sweet of you all. So he read books to you every week, swang on the swings with you even though he was too big. That's just that's so touching. What would you like people to know about Deputy Brewer, since he's someone that you saw every week, or Detective Brewer, I should say?
That he cares about people a lot.
Is there anything in particular that you remember talking with him about at school, on the swings, or anything that really sticks out in your mind? No, okay. But that's really fantastic. I'm so glad you have those memories of him, and thank you so much for sharing them with us. Jason, that's just really amazing. I think that's something people really, that's something they need to hear about, that this wasn't just somebody riding around in a patrol car. This was somebody who was really involved in the community. Has it been difficult for you to talk with your children about this?
To some degree, but we have always been very open with our kids about life and death and sacrifice, and we've always tried to teach them to honor our police officers, both who have passed and who are currently serving. So, to some degree, but we just talked about it, and I guess in our own way tried to honor him. So
yeah, and your son's name?
Levi.
Levi, did you know Detective Brewer as well?
Yes.
Yeah. What would you like to say, Levi, about Detective Brewer? What would you like people to know about him?
He's a really great guy, and he's really fun with kids, and he's just really nice to small and elementary kids.
What did you remember about him at the school? Your sister said, she remembers swinging on the swings with him even though he was too big. What do you remember?
I remember him playing football, kickball, and eating lunch with me, talking to me, and reading books, all of that fun stuff that he likes to do with us.
So he was a really big part of your school.
Yeah. A lot of people cared about him, and he made mostly everyone laugh.
That's great. Was he a funny guy?
Yeah.
What was funny about him?
That he told a lot of knock jokes at recess and at lunch through the whole day.
Yeah, that's funny. Now, you have a sign here. You and your sister are holding this up. You guys went and got this made?
Yeah, from our dad's work, someone passed these posters out so we can hold them today.
It's really nice. It's probably been a really sad week at school, too.
It has. We've had to wear blue 2 days and bring money in. That's how much we cared about them.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Levi, for talking with us. And Jason, thank you. Thank you all. And thanks for being out here today. I think it really means a lot to the sheriff's office. Very touching, I feel like, to hear from Levi and his sister about Detective Brewer and just coming to the school every week and reading books with them, swinging on the swings, even though he was too big for the swings. Obviously, you can see this has really hit the community hard. We have a lot of people out here in the procession just wanting to show support and pay their respects. Great sign here. Thank you for your service with the blue line through the flag. We have children here with some American flags. Hi there, how are you all doing today? I'm Anjanette with Local 12 News. Could we ask you, why did you guys bring the children out today?
Well, both me and my wife served in the military, so this is a big thing for us. We were both MPs in the United States Air Force, so of course giving back to the community and just showing our support.
Yeah. Wow, so thank you for your service, first of all. How difficult has this been for the community, do you think?
I think it's a pretty hard hit. I mean, these guys really don't get a lot of respect that they deserve, especially nowadays. So, like I said, it's pretty hard, especially for us, both MPs. We know how hard it is.
And what was your name, sir?
Mark Crosby.
Mark, okay. And ma'am, what is your name?
Amanda Crosby.
Amanda, and you said you were a military police officer as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you for your service as well. How difficult has this been for you this week, watching everything that's unfolded with the loss of Deputy Brewer?
It's gone from loss of sleep, thoughts about the family, walking into the boys' school. It's hard because his son is in the same class as Micah here, and you see, it's just been really difficult.
I'm sure, and that's so terrible. So did you know his son?
No, I did not. At least, I don't think so.
Yeah, but this has got to be just, it's heartbreaking, but more heartbreaking for his school because their classmate has now lost his father.
Yes, it is. It's been very difficult on the school. Teachers, students, everyone.
How have you talked to your children about this? I mean, this is it's difficult enough to explain loss to children and to explain death and grieving, but to deal with it like this when it's all over the news, that has to be even more difficult, and with it hitting home with them.
We talked to them like they're adults, and we told them, this is what happened and this is what we're going to do. They are not, they know about loss. We have lost in our family, so they know how they are feeling. It's just, they get it for the most part.
Is there any way that that the school is going to be showing some, how they're going to be supporting his son in the days ahead?
They did say that they were going to do something. I'm not really sure at this point what they are going to do, but they did send out an email saying they were going to do something for the family.
As a former military police officer, somebody who has served law enforcement, we always hear that it's like a family. So you're part of that family. Can you explain what that loss is like for people sitting at home who may not completely understand it?
It's like the loss of a brother or sister. It's you. It could be you. You always think, you could have been there next to them, and it's family. We band together, and that's just the way it is. It's like an extended family.
Thank you. Can we ask Micah a question, or would you?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, Micah. Hi there. How are you? Good. Was it important for you to come out here today to show some support for Detective Brewer and his family?
Yes.
Yeah. Has it been hard at school this week?
Yes.
What's it been like at school? I'm sorry?
My feelings.
Your feelings? Are your feelings hurt and sad?
Yes.
Yeah. What can you tell us? Are you friends with Deputy Brewer's or Detective Brewer's son?
With Braxton? Yes.
Yeah. Is he he's probably a nice boy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry for the loss of Braxton's father, and I'm sorry for your loss, but it's so nice to see you out here today showing support. Thank you all so much, and again, thank you for your service. Rob, just a few of the people who are out here today. Clermont County, it's not a small community, but in a way it is. Close-knit. You can see people who knew Detective Brewer out here. Obviously, son's classmate, Braxton's classmate, is here with his family showing support. So a lot of people out here, and I think this will mean a lot to the Sheriff's Office and the other members of law enforcement when they come down Clough Pike and see all of these people here.
And Jeanette, I'm sure you're right. Thanks very much. We appreciate it.
And Local 12's Jeff Hirsch is also out along the Procession route there. He's on Ohio Pike, and that's where people have been lining up, and it sounds like there are a lot of people there, Jeff.
Yeah, the crowd has really picked up in just the last few minutes. There were some really early gatherers here around 10 o'clock, but now it's really filling up. You can take a look down the line there and see quite a few people. There's others on the other side of me. If you kind of pan up, you can see the blue line flag, the fallen officer flag, which is on the end of a tree trimming bucket. So that company has come out and they're putting their flag up, this flag up, which will be over Ohio Pike 125 when the procession comes by. It'll be coming down Ohio Pike 125. It'll go past me here and turn right onto Merwin 10 Mile, and the cemetery is down not too far from here, actually. Interesting. A little while ago, there's a skyline just right there at the intersection on the other side of me, and we were in there a little while ago, and the TVs were on, and people were watching the service. And, I think anybody that's been to a skyline or other similar place around lunchtime It's loud, it's bustling, you know, I got an order, and people are running around. This was pretty quiet. People were just watching, and they had some of the blue flags, the thin blue line flags with them. So it was just a totally different mood, as it should be. Can we swing around this way, or is it too bad? The sun, can we swing around this way? Let's take a look around this way. I don't hope the sun's not too bad, but let's take a look, and you can just see that, you know, the crowd is also on the other side. Let's talk to this gentleman here. Sir, can I just ask you a question? Yes, sir. Okay. Did you know the Deputy Brewer, just here to pay your respects?
I'm just here to pay my respects.
What are your thoughts as you look around and you see all the other people that are with you doing the same thing?
I think it's a great thing. I think our country is only as strong as the people in it. And when we come out to pay respects to someone that gave up his life, his family time, and his free will to defend our country and serve and protect, it's an amazing thing, and the least we can do is come out and support that.
Thank you very much. So you're going to hear that from a lot of people, and people I've talked to at this one, and you know, I hate to say this, but at the Dale Woods funeral a few weeks ago, and others, most of the people who come out to these events did not know the officer in question. They just came out to pay their respects to the family, to the concept, and you know, there's just going to be more of that we're going to hear as the procession comes down the street. Live in Amelia, Jeff Hirsch, Local 12 News, back to you.
All right, Jeff, thank you. So nice to see so many people out there showing their respect.
These are pictures from the church. They're about to remove Detective Brewer's casket. I'm assuming that most of these folks are Clermont County deputies.
And obviously there are hundreds,
There it is, yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of law enforcement officers there as the casket comes out. Such a somber time, somber moment.
The family asked for some private time after the service that was that we broadcast. The request from the county was to broadcast it, and we did. And then the family wanted some time, which is what they have taken. But apparently that has now ended, and they're bringing the casket out to make its way to the graveside. And in fact, it's going to be a rather long procession between here and there, which is why people are lining up.
They might have as many as 1,000 vehicles in the procession, and the route is very lengthy, actually. It'll go from the church at Buxton and Clough, down Clough toward Batavia. It'll pass the Batavia Township Community Center, and that's where the sheriff's substation is, where Deputy Brewer spent a lot of years. Then it'll proceed into Batavia, turning onto Main Street, and then heading west on State Route 32. That leads to 275, where it'll travel south to the Beachmont Avenue exit, and then east to Merwin 10 Mile before turning into the Pierce Township Cemetery.
It just feels so final, doesn't it?
It does. And heartbreaking. Your thoughts, Dan?
It just brings back the same vibes. My career lived through 14 of my brothers in Cincinnati, and the outpouring of support is tremendous, but it's gut-wrenching for all of us, especially those who knew and worked with Bill.
And the families, all the families of law enforcement realize that this is a potential reality, and they put it in a box and leave it somewhere in the house and try to go on with their lives. But this is what everybody fears.
Well, it's interesting you're saying that. Late last night, I got a phone call from the wife of a deputy that I work with, and that's exactly what she was saying. She was talking about how, you know, really us as police officers or law enforcement, we don't really think about that this is going to happen.
Sure.
But you know, she reminded me. She said there wasn't a day that her husband left that she was wondering how she was going to get to her children and tell them about, you know, if this tragic event had occurred to them. And I confess, I probably, like everybody else, I never thought about what the wives go through daily.
Yeah. So obviously the casket has been loaded into the hearse, and the officers are dispersing now, getting in their vehicles, and they'll begin this very long procession.
Adam, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you, Rob.
What are you seeing from where you are?
From where I am, Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah, we got you. Go right ahead, Adam.
Okay. Right behind me here, this is, you see all of these emergency vehicles, police cruisers lit up. I mean, this is really an unbelievable sight here to be this close to it. And it gives you an idea of just the magnitude of what we're talking about here today. And think about this: with each of these cruisers, these vehicles, there is at least one or maybe two officers attached. Think about the magnitude of that when you're talking about these officers who have families at home, who live with that daily fear that you guys were just talking about back in the studio of my loved one might not make it home tonight. And it's something that I would imagine they don't like to think about, but something that's always there and always in the back of their mind. And this is sort of a visual representation of that. And when you think about it, it really kind of hits you. Let's walk over here. I want to show you. This is the church across the street here, but you can see there are some folks that are starting to line up here to pay their respects. And guys, it's cold. I mean, it is really, really cold. So for anybody to be out here, that just goes to show you how important this is for them to be out here showing their support. See a few children off in the distance there. And then you see the cruisers all lined up, ready for this procession, which will be lengthy. We talked about it. I think it's somewhere around 15 miles, which is a very long procession for something of this nature. But again, you talk about this is a big county, and Detective Brewer meant a lot to a lot of different parts of this county. We mentioned Batavia, where he was posted. We mentioned Williamsburg, where that was a part of his childhood. That's where he went to high school. That's where he's from. So it will certainly be making the rounds here throughout Clermont County. But again, the folks that are lining up here to show their support, this Buxton Road here, it isn't a very pedestrian-friendly area. Of course, they have built sidewalks in front of the new high school here, which has only been open a couple of years. So it is accessible, but it's not very well traveled by foot. You don't see a lot of people out here typically. This is my community. I'm from here, so I know it well. And you don't typically see people out here, but they're finding a way to get here. Where they're parking, I'm not sure, because both lots here at the school, there's a lot that I just showed you. And then there's another lot on the other side of the building there that's completely packed as well. So again, we're talking upwards of 1,000, possibly more, cruisers and officers that are here paying their respects. Inside the high school, they had two separate viewing areas. They had the auditorium and they had the cafeteria where folks could come in and watch and pay their respects. Both of those inside were packed. And then, of course, you had the church, which seats about 550, reserved for family and what we would presume to be Clermont County Sheriff's deputies. And then Crossroads Church, just about, I'd say about 5 to 10 minutes away, also open, as well as the middle school, the West Clermont Middle School, which was the former Amelia High School and Middle School, also hosting folks who want to come and pay their respects. So, again, back here live, out on Buxton here, you see the people lined up. You see the cruisers lined up as they prepare to take the body of Detective Bill Brewer to his final resting place, to the cemetery, before making its way around town for this procession. Again, just a lot of emotion here. It's a somber tone, and it's one that unfortunately we've felt all too often recently here in the past month or so. And you hope for peace for the family. This is going to be a whirlwind for them. This day is likely going to be a blur. But I think that, looking out and seeing all of this support and knowing that these people are there for them. We talked about his wife. We talked about his 5-year-old son. And you can't even imagine what they are going through right now. Earlier, we talked to the family of Jason Ellis. We showed that to you. And they're reliving this day, but they say that on a day like this, it's important for this family to know that they have not only the community support, but also the law enforcement community support, and they have it. They have it today. And it's pretty evident when you see what you're seeing here with all of these cruisers, all of these officers. Just a remarkable scene as we wait for this procession to begin. Guys, we'll send it back in the studio to you for now, but we will be standing by for any new updates, and once this procession starts, we will bring that to you live as well. For now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Adam, thanks very much. It is important to point out that the family is allowing this to happen today. They don't have to allow this to happen. They are allowing the community to share in the loss,
right?
Because everybody feels it.
And we follow their lead, really.
Yes, it's a really good collaborative, but it's a lot of support. And it's really great of the folks at the Mount Carmel Christian Church to open up. Yesterday in the line, greeting line and the viewing line, they were out with carts with bottles of water. Anyone in line would like a water. It was just great hosting, and it's just a great effort.
And it's no small thing to put together something of this magnitude.
Well, one thing I observed I wanted to point out, not to keep repeating myself about how close and tight-knit this community of law enforcement is in Clermont County. If you observed the honor guard bringing Bill out to load him up in the hearse to start the procession, that was obviously all deputy sheriffs, but the person at the head of that of the casket assisting them is a Union Township police officer. And both he and his wife are police officers. She's a police officer in the city of Milford, and he's a Union Township police officer. And both of them, it's just the entire community of law enforcement in Clermont County. This is just the qualities you get from them. They're just, it's really a very tight-knit community.
And the mutual aid is constant, every day, all day.
Every day, all day. They're always backing each other. It's not, I remember I'm dating myself, but going back several years when Cincinnati had a layoff. Mike Wiley was a deputy sheriff, was hired as a deputy sheriff from that layoff. And Mike came out here and was used to, when an officer had a problem downtown, you're surrounded. Mike ended up getting into an altercation down in Moscow, and he thought he was in another world.
And alone.
And he was very much alone. It would take half hour probably to get assistance to him. So it's just that's just how these people they live, they eat, they rejoice, all as a very tight-knit group. And I tell you, I can't tell you how proud I am of these people.
That's so neat. And Dan, we were talking earlier, you were Cincinnati Police Department for 27 years, is that right?
Yes.
And you said there's a really special connection between CPD and Clermont County too. Talk about that.
Well, there is. There have been a lot of my brother officers who have retired from Cincinnati who are now working at the Clermont County Sheriff's Office. And earlier we talked about Doug Ventry. Doug was the leader of the SWAT team in the Clermont County Sheriff's Office. And way I understand it, he's retired, but he was still active he still had his commission, and he was called out last week. And
Steve Leahy mentioned that during his speech there.
During his speech, yes. So it's a great connection, and the way that the SWAT officers worked together was fabulous, and the support is there when you need it.
We're going to talk to Angela Ingram here in just a second, but I want to point out before we do that these officers who are here today are volunteers. These guys aren't on the clock, right? Nobody's paying them to come here. Right. So it contributes to the brotherhood continuing, because this is for them something they're doing free of charge. They're not going to, they borrow the cars, and essentially what they do, right? And they ride down there on their own time.
And I'm sure there's nowhere else they'd rather be, right?
Exactly. And that's what Angela did today. She came down with a huge contingent from the Dayton, Ohio area, and she rode in their procession from Dayton down. Angela, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Rob, I can. I just heard the CPD motorcycle unit start up, so I think they're about to pull out here from West Clermont High School. You can see behind me a sea of vehicles with those lights on. They are ready to take Deputy Brewer back through the area that he served for so many years. But as you said, we were up bright and early in Montgomery County in the Dayton area, and we rode down actually in a caravan, so you may be able to see that video there. This was an undertaking that they of course were willing to do. It was something that they wanted to do for their brother. I say their brother because, as you know, this is a brotherhood and a sisterhood. It doesn't matter whether they actually knew Deputy Brewer. This is their brother. He has fallen, and he did so serving our area. So they said, we are coming. We're coming to support his family, and we are coming to let people know that we care about him. Actually, let's go live here. Come out of the video if we can, because it does look like the funeral procession is leaving here. We are beginning to roll out of here, and you can see the hearse there in the front, as well as the motorcycle units that will escort this entire procession through this area. There are literally hundreds of officers here. I've seen every kind of uniform in departments I've never heard of are here, and they're really from all over the country, and that's just exactly what you would expect when someone has given their life in the line of duty. And as we were coming down here today along 75 South from the Dayton area, riding in that caravan with the Dayton area officers, of which there were about 50 vehicles, but it was really interesting as we traveled south, we were picking up more vehicles in our caravan, so we just kept growing and growing and growing. But one of the things, as we got closer to Clermont County, we saw all of those people that you've already seen standing on the side of the road. Cars were pulling over, people were getting out of their vehicles, they were recording it. Many had their hand over their heart to express their sympathies and also their unity with the sheriff's department, and letting people know that they do care and that the job that they go out and do every day, when they put on that uniform and that gun belt and that badge, not knowing if they're going to go home to their family and their friends, that we appreciate them. That's what we saw as we were coming down I-75. One of the things interesting to me as well, this is a huge undertaking when you're talking about this many officers from this many jurisdictions coming together to do something like this. And the coordination is just unbelievably smooth. They had the roads blocked off for the officers. They were all on one channel. I'm talking about the ones up in Montgomery County. And that continued as we came down south. At one point, our caravan merged with another. So by the time we actually got here, I would say we had roughly 200 cruisers and vehicles pulling into the lot here. But when you talk about something running incredibly smoothly, this has been a day of that. Just constant professionalism from the people out here and constant support from the community. You can probably see on the side of the roads that people have come out here. They're standing on the side of the roads with their children. We always love to see children saluting and things like that, to let them know at an early age, instill in them that sense in the importance of law enforcement and really supporting first responders in general, firefighters, military, and police officers and deputies. And this has certainly been a day where we've seen a lot of support here. I think for us, especially in our region, and Rob and Cammie, I know that you probably in your careers have said the same thing to yourselves. How many times have we heard of this many officers killed in this brief period of time since January? Okay, since January, we've had 3 law enforcement officers who've been killed, and it started with Officer Dale Woods out of Coleraine Township, and that was in the first week, and he was simply standing out there in a reflective vest trying to investigate an accident, and he was hit by a vehicle. And he went to the hospital where we hoped he would recover, but that wasn't the case, and he passed away. After him, you have Clear Creek Township Officer Jarrett Lee, who was on his way to the gym so that he could work out and be in shape and go to work after that. And he is allegedly hit by an impaired driver, and who went left of center, crashed into him, killing him. And then you have Deputy Brewer, who was with another one of his deputies, his brother, going to check on someone who they believed was likely a suicidal person. So they were trying to help, and gets there and is shot twice and killed. And earlier in the week, we talked to the coroner, the Hamilton County coroner, who told me he was shot under his vest, that Deputy Brewer had received 2 gunshot wounds. One was in his leg, and then the other one was in the pelvis area, and that was the fatal shot. And for her, it was incredibly difficult because she knew him. And then you have to look at this man on a slab and know that his wife is home with no husband, and his son now has no father. But the beautiful thing about law enforcement and our community in general is, as we talk to these officers and these deputies, they tell me it doesn't matter in one sense that his father is not here. Of course it matters, but in a way, he's gained a whole family. He's always had that family, but he'll never be alone. They will never be alone because we will always, always be there. He's got a ton of uncles. He's got a ton of people who will always be there for him, even if they did not know him. So that's the kind of feeling that's going on in our area. It's just as soon as we were done with one funeral and you just try to feel normal again, here comes another tragedy. It comes another time when we have to come together and talk about how dangerous that job can be, and talk about how every run can be perceived as a danger if you're a man or a woman who serves, because you get a call for a suicidal subject, you don't necessarily believe you're going to lose your life over that. When I talk to officers, some of the things that scare them are traffic stops, and you would think, well, it's a traffic stop, I was speeding. Why do they feel nervous just because they're pulling me over? It's because they don't know who is in that vehicle. They don't know if you have a firearm, and they don't know if they might be the next person that we're standing out here for. So they have procedures and protocols, and every day with that in the back of their mind, weighing on them, they still come in and try to do the best job that they can do. And it's a tough job. They see some of the things that none of us ever want to see. They see people in some of the worst times, domestic violence situations, children who have been abused, all kinds of horrible things. And they're human. So imagine having to see things like that on a daily basis, or with a level of frequency that the average person does not, and then go home to your family. And still doing that job, know that you might have to attend a funeral like this for your brother. So these are some of the things that we were hearing as we left today from Montgomery County and the Dayton area. And I just so appreciate the fact that they allow us to be here and be present, because, we don't want to be intrusive, but we want to let everyone at home see what we're seeing. We want you to be a witness as well to what we are witnessing, and they're going through a tough time. So they're going through that time, yet still they allow us to be in their presence. They allow us to be in a cruiser today and come down in a caravan of roughly 50, grew to over 100 officers coming here. Now, this to me looks like, from the looks of it, the Cincinnati Police Department rolling out here. This appears to be the motor units that are now about to join the procession as well. We talked to kids about, police officers and building those police community relationships early on, and SROs, school resource officers, who still serve. They serve just like any other officer, but they early on build those connections with youth and young people in the schools and try to deal with some of the issues that we see now. Some of the young people in the schools dealing with problems at home, and they rely on the school resource officers. So these officers serve in so many different ways on a daily basis, doing a job that many people do not have the guts to do, and not knowing whether or not they will come home to see their family, praying that they do, and most of the time they do, but every now and again we get something like we got here today, and what's been going on really over the past month. And speaking with the Clermont Township Police Chief earlier this week about Officer Dale Woods, who was hit and died not too long ago, and he said to me, I just now felt like I was getting back to normal as normal can be when you lose your brother, who you were the chief of the jurisdiction, and he passes away. And he was literally writing out his name on 600 cards, thank you cards, because he had stacks and stacks of beautiful cards from all over the world. He had literally all over the world. He was able to show them to me. People, because of the internet now, we know when someone passes away way quicker than we did years ago. It takes off on the internet, and other law enforcement jurisdictions hear about it. So the Clermont Township Police Chief was telling me, we were just now feeling like we were getting back to normal. And then we had Deputy Brewer, and before that, the Clear Creek Township Officer, Jarrett Lee. And so this has just been a difficult time. But the beautiful thing, again, is in our community and many others, when things like this happen, we do what needs to be done. We come together and we respect people and we honor them in the manner in which they should be honored. Rob and Cammie, they're going to continue to roll out, but we're going to send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Angela, hang with us here just a moment, if you will. Everything you said was just so well said, and it really underscores the reason that we are bringing this funeral service and the procession and everything to you here on Local 12. It's important, we feel, as a news organization, to make sure the community sees this and appreciates it the way that we do. If you are just tuning in and you are looking for regular programming, which is The Young and the Restless, followed by Bold and Beautiful, those shows will be aired on the CW Cincinnati, which is 12.2. But we're going to stay with this for a while now.
They've been telling us that there are as many as 1,000 vehicles that are going to participate in this procession, and it's going to be rather long. So here's what it looks like, and we're going to show you the route that they're going to take. It leads from the church here at Buxton and Clough Pike, down Clough toward Batavia, passing the Batavia Township Community Center, and that's where the sheriff's substation is, where Deputy Brewer spent many of his years when he was on patrol. It will proceed into Batavia, turning onto Main Street and then heading west on State Route 32. That leads to 275, where it will travel south to Beachmont Avenue, and from there it will head east on Merwin 10 Mile before turning into the Pierce Township Cemetery. School is closed today in Deputy Brewer's hometown of Williamsburg, as well as West Clermont, Batavia, and New Richmond. Those students and their families are being encouraged to line the procession route to pay their respects, and we're seeing that, and it's becoming rather thick in areas. Here's an example. This is where Anjanette Levy is. I think this is Clough, if I'm not mistaken.
It looks like Clough.
Yeah.
Anjanette, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Cammie. This is Clough Pike in Batavia Township, and Deputy Brewer's, the hearse carrying his casket just went by. As you can see, people are standing here quietly, paying their respects, just watching very solemnly as this procession makes its way through. I think we'll just watch this for a little bit. As you can see, some of these vehicles, they're not police vehicles. These were following the hearse. A lot of these look like personal vehicles, maybe belonging to family and friends, or maybe some police officers taking part in this procession. As you can see, all of them have the funeral flags on them. And you mentioned that a lot of the schools in Clermont County are closed today, and we actually see people who brought their children out here to pay their respects. A very important thing to teach the children about when somebody dies serving the community or their country. It's important to come out and show that support and to pay respect. As you can see, too, here's the special response team vehicle from Clermont County coming through the procession right now. As you saw, the Clermont County Sheriff's Office Special Response Team vehicle did come through just in the last few minutes, followed by the Cincinnati SWAT team. That SWAT team, of course, came in last Saturday night and assisted with the standoff, eventually taking that suspect who killed Deputy Brewer into custody. As we watch these Clermont County Sheriff's vehicles come through here, I don't know if you guys can see it back there, but I'm obviously a little closer and can see inside the windows and have seen a lot of people who are driving or either passengers crying, wiping away tears. Some of them appearing to put their hands up by their mouths in an effort to maybe hold back the tears. But holding back the tears is really something that they just need to let it out. You know, we talked to a mental health professional, a psychiatrist earlier in the week, about how hard this is on police officers when they lose someone, when they lose a brother or a sister. And she talked about the importance of, you know, these officers, these deputies, really just letting their emotions out, being allowed to emote, even though there's a bravado that sometimes goes along with being a police officer, that they're supposed to be tough and get right back to it. She talked about how very important it is for them to talk about their fears and their grief and what is bothering them, to let that out as soon as possible, so it's not pushed down and suppressed, because then it just blows up later, and that's not healthy for them, and it's not healthy for the community that they're serving. So as the people are coming by, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of tears through the windows of these sheriff's vehicles. It hits home, and really, when you see that pain in their faces, it's one thing to see it on the news and hear about it and feel the sadness from it, but when you really see these people and the expressions on their faces and the grief that they're feeling, I think it really hits you in the gut, and you realize the pain that they're going through. Diana Hastings is here. She brought her children. They live in the New Richmond area. She brought her children here today to pay their respects. Diana, you have 4 children here, and you felt that it was very important. You're holding the heart. You received the heart from one of the ladies back here. The children at the Batavia schools cut these hearts out for everybody to hold today. So, Diana, why was it so important for you to bring your children out?
Well, you know, this man gave his life up to save somebody else's life. And that's what it all comes down to. Real heroes don't wear capes, they wear badges. So, we're all here to show our support.
And you get choked up when you say that. That's something you believe in your heart.
I don't want to see anybody die, especially somebody alive. They're giving up everything they have to protect us. Their families are the ones that suffer for it. So.
Detective Brewer had a 5-year-old son, and you have a 5-year-old son.
No, actually, this is my neighbor's son.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not your son. I apologize.
I have a 13 and a 21-year-old.
Oh, okay. So 2 of these are your children. I apologize. I thought all 4 were. I'm so sorry. But obviously, you have children.
Yes.
Your heart has to go out to Jamie Brewer, and to Braxton Brewer. You know, to lose a father of a young child like that, and a husband. That's probably something that you can relate to.
I've lost my 26-year-old brother and my mother, so yes, I can relate. I would hate to see anybody go through it.
This is your son?
Yes.
What was your name, sir, again?
Damien Hastings.
Damien. Okay, I know you had told me that before. I'm sorry. This is a little bit upsetting watching all of these cars come by. Damien, you wanted to come out here today. Why did you want to come?
Because this officer died doing what he's loved, serving and protecting Ohio and New Richmond and places like that.
Have you guys talked about this at school this week?
Kind of. In class, we wrote a note saying sorry for your loss and everything. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Diana, for talking with us. Again, the students at Batavia schools cut these hearts out, and there's been a woman out here handing these out to everyone so that they could hold these as the procession goes by. The Cincinnati Police Department just had a few cars who came through here, and they, of course, backed up the Clermont County Sheriff's Office the other night. So we'll send it back to Rob and Cammie in the studio as we continue to watch the procession move by.
All right, Anjanette, thank you so much. And earlier this morning, there was a very short but very powerful service at the Mount Carmel Christian Church. The sheriff of Clermont County, Steve Leahy, spoke. He was very raw, he was very real, and very witty. Let's listen to an excerpt from that.
I apologize if I don't get through this without breaking down. I've been getting asked a lot lately. How are you doing? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you taking care of yourself? And the answer is no, not at all. I'm a mess. I'm a wreck. I'm devastated. But just like all of you, how can I not be when I know that Bill's family is not okay, when my staff is not okay? You know, I woke the other morning crying unconditionally, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm in my 50s, and I've only cried 4 times in the last 30 years. The birth of my son, the death of my father, the death of my mother, and now Bill. I think of how many missed opportunities for me to show people that I cared, that I am human. To all the families in the county that I tried to be strong for and put my cop face on during your time of need and tragedy, I'm sorry. To what's left of my family, I am sorry. To my staff and co-workers, I'm sorry. To everyone I never said I love you to or to them enough, I'm sorry. To my son who tells me every night and every day, I love you, and I mumble back, I'm sorry. To all of you here today, don't put on your cop face and try to be strong. You don't want to look weak because you don't want to look weak and cry. For God's sake, don't take your loved ones for granted. Don't mumble back when someone tells you that they love you. To this community, you should mourn Deputy Bill Brewer. You should be proud of all these fine men and women here today who serve you in this county. They are all wonderful. You're lucky to have them. I thank you. My office thanks you for your support, encouragement, generosity, and love during this hard time.
We want to show you now where the procession is going. This is a picture of the cemetery where Mr. Brewer will be buried. It is not a huge cemetery, but they will park on the road outside. And this is Pierce Township. So there may be 1,000 cars. I mean, it's going to be nothing but cruisers in this area. That's where the procession is going. It's going to take quite a long time to get there, however. So what we're going to do is leave the procession pictures that we have available online for you to watch. We're going to leave you for a time and allow regular programming to continue. But I promise you that when the procession makes it to the cemetery, before anything happens there, they will bring it back live here on Channel 12.
And in the meantime, we want to thank Daryl Hawkins, Dan Cott, for being with us. You'll be back with us when they get to the cemetery.
My honor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both very much. And we're going to continue, you know, like I said, like you said, online. People can
Yes,
watch.
and we'll send you back to regular programming, and we'll see you soon. Good afternoon, everybody. As promised, the graveside ceremony for Clermont County Sheriff's Deputy Bill Brewer is about to begin.
The procession from the church to the cemetery took really almost 2 hours, and the caisson is carrying Deputy Brewer's casket to the gravesite. You're watching the color guard here, the honor guard, moving forward, and then the family will follow, and then a caisson.
The family has been in some Suburbans that were parked near the gravesite, and they've been waiting as the law enforcement, and as you can tell, I don't know how many people that is, but it's a bunch. They've been filing in for the past hour and a half, and the family is exiting the Suburbans now, so things are starting to begin. This camera position is the only one available to us, so much of what will happen face-to-face with the family will not be able to be presented by us, but that's the intent. The family didn't want to be front and center on television, but we will be able to see what we can see, and we will hear what we're fortunate enough to hear. There are microphones available, but some of these activities will happen away from the microphone.
And obviously, when the important things happen, we will be quiet and respectful and let you watch along. But we do want to let you know that Rob and I are joined this morning by two gentlemen who are really sort of helping to give perspective to today's events. Daryl Hawkins is a former Clermont County Sheriff's Deputy, an assistant prosecutor who now works with the Coroner's Office, and then Dan Cott is a former Cincinnati police officer who's been involved with Clermont County law enforcement for the past several years. And we appreciate both of you being with us to sort of walk us through what's happening today.
This has been quite the honor for Mr. Brewer, don't you think?
Oh, I'm overwhelmed. Just looking at the sea of brothers and sisters in uniform there, and I showed you earlier. There's policemen here from as far away as the city of New York, and that is just incredibly impressive. And the respect that the officers are showing their. I mean, this is family. This is family. This is it's just one big family.
And Dan, as you're watching, I've seen you get a little choked up at times just watching all this.
Yes, thank you for the Kleenex.
Yes, you're welcome.
Cammie, yeah, it is touching, and it brings back different memories, and especially with the children, Braxton School, sharing the heart images, and that you have our heart with you. Those all just resonate. And again, part of that ripple effect.
Yeah, Braxton, of course, is Detective Bill Brewer's son, and you both have mentioned what a tight-knit group Clermont County Sheriff's Department is.
Yes, and law enforcement in general. But as we said earlier, when I was in Cincinnati, there were 5 districts and 5 separate buildings. Then you had the specialized units, and it's easy to be fragmented, and you can go your whole career and not know a segment of our department. Whereas in Clermont County, they work out of the same building. They all know each other. They come and go different shifts. They see each other. They have their vacations together, celebrate birthdays and marriages, weddings together. So it's very close.
Well, and following up, it's even in the county where you've got other agencies. You've got Union Township, you got Miami Township, you got Goshen Township, you got Pierce Township, and you got all the villages, the city of Milford, city of Loveland. Even though they cover the entire county of Clermont County, because of the interaction with everybody coming to Batavia for court, and everybody patrolling different areas. It's Clermont County as a whole is just very tight.
Yeah, and Sheriff Steve Leahy of Clermont County really spoke to that earlier during the funeral service when he talked about, just, I don't know, what a tight group they are. And he said, and I'm loosely quoting here, he said, "I'm a wreck, I'm devastated, I'm not okay, and neither is my staff." He said, "We're about 200 strong," and he said, "This is just devastating us." And he was just very raw, emotional, and just really real, I thought, in his speech.
I was out there in and around the sheriff's office several times this week leading up to today, and people that I was really surprised at really how somber and how affected the officers were. I just can't begin to tell you how proud I am of the sheriff's office and Sheriff Leahy and those that went before him that have led to this kind of camaraderie. It's fantastic. I am even more impressed by these people than I was when I walked in here today.
So who's covering for these guys? The county is covered.
Well, I know that some of the smaller departments, I talked to Mike Freeman, and Dan talked to Mike Freeman earlier, and they were covering part of the northern part of the county. There's no question in my mind the county is still being protected, even though the guys and gals that are out there patrolling are doing it with a heavy heart. But and even this week, I of course I still work with the coroner, so I still get a lot of phone calls. And this week, I was just so impressed by how the deputies responded. And they're still out there doing their job, serving the community.
And I was reminded of that mutual aid. We talked off the air about that. And with a county like Clermont, it is so close and tight that it's almost a continual mutual aid between Union and Miami Townships, Pierce Townships, the other townships. My brothers in Cincinnati had said we offered to come out and cover runs for Clermont County, and the response was we got it covered within our county. So the townships are pulling together. Even offers came in from outside sheriff's departments and the state patrol. But so the police services are continuing to be provided uninterrupted.
So as we watch the service here at the cemetery, our camera is back a ways, and that's at the request of the family to give them the privacy that they want. The chaplain, Harvey Cook, from the Clermont County Sheriff's Office, is speaking or will speak at some point. There's a flag presentation and a 21-gun salute.
Here's the caisson. This is the body of Detective Brewer coming into the cemetery now. He was in a hearse and that was parked across the street at the Pierce Township Fire Department and held there until everybody was in place, and then loaded on this caisson, and then is being brought in by horse.
And then the rider of this horse, they're following behind him. You know, I've only seen that before in presidential.
Now, I do remember with Sonny Kim's funeral, they did have that at
Okay.
Gate of Heaven Cemetery,
Well,
and it's very emotional.
It's nice that they do that.
Yeah, it is.
The only other time I've seen that is at Police Memorial Week.
Okay.
During that ceremony.
Beautiful animals.
They sure are. And as you watch this coverage of the services here at the cemetery, we cannot hear exactly what's going on. That's at the request of the family, but the chaplain, as I mentioned earlier, will be speaking. That's Harvey Cook with the Clermont County Sheriff's Office. And soon they will do the flag presentation, the 21 gun salute, and there will be a flyover by the Hamilton County Sheriff's chopper.
fitting tribute to Detective Bill Brewer from Clermont County today. This is nearing the very end of what is happening at the cemetery service.
No doubt it's been a very long and difficult day for everyone there, maybe for a lot of you watching. Daryl Hawkins, Dan Cott with us. If you want to maybe sum up what you've seen today and what you are feeling and what you think they're feeling as well.
Very emotional. Excuse me. I just hope your viewers appreciate what they've seen here today, not just the sacrifice of Detective Brewer, but of all of these young men and women that are some of the finest, the best, and the brightest of our young people who go out every day, risk their lives for the betterment of their community and for all of everybody's families. And they're here today to pay honor and pay tribute to their fallen brother. Extremely emotional time.
And it's the human side that's coming out today. It's the outpouring of love. The officers are not made of steel, that they're human. They have families. They put their pants on the same way we do, everyone else does in the morning, one leg at a time. And it's a time of coming together and showing of support. And I think we've all seen that today.
It is amazing because we're getting sort of the inside look at what it takes to be a police officer. You can have the face that we heard the sheriff talking about, the police officer face when you're working, the tough guy face. Sometimes it takes. But boy, this is what no one gets to see. You go home and you have to deal with this. You see other officers losing their lives. This has to make everyone more aware, more feeling, more sensitive to the dangers that are out there.
Yeah, and the Clermont County Sheriff, Steve Leahy, I thought had a really neat message for everybody, which was, to paraphrase, make sure that you tell people you love them. You don't let things go unsaid because you just don't know. You never know what the day will bring.
Amen.
Yeah, and there's a prayer card, little program prayer card, if you will, that was handed out at the funeral service. Megan Mangello, who was covering that, brought some back for us. It's also on her Twitter page and mine as well. I retweeted it if you'd like to see it. But there are some great pictures there of Detective Brewer, his wife Jamie, their son Braxton. And boy, if that doesn't make you feel, what a loss. I don't know what would, because they're just great pictures of the three of them smiling. It's family, just like we have our own families, and now this family's shattered.
From a happier time, but it's good to know that these officers and others will be taking care of this family, right? They're not going to be an island.
That's correct. There'll be a lot of follow-up. There are provisions that have been passed through state legislature to take care of the education, secondary education for children of officers slain in the line of duty. There's support from the FOP, from the SHIELD, as we talked about earlier. So there are a lot of levels of support, although nothing can bring back the husband and the father. It's good to know the community is surrounding this time of tragedy with as much love and support as I can imagine.
Yeah, I think back to Dale Wood's funeral when they said to his children, you have just, gotten yourselves a whole bunch of aunts and uncles and, people who are going to be part of your life forever, and I'm sure it's going to be the same for Braxton.
Well, there's going to be a lot of more recognition of Detective Brewer's sacrifices. I'm sure I know there's several organizations, including one that I belong to, that are working to try to make sure that his good name is kept alive and kept out there. And it's a tragedy, and yet it's a celebration of a life that was well lived.
His name will also be used in training for other officers. That's what happens out of this.
Absolutely.
The horrors that he faced will be shared with other officers as they're training to go into the field to possibly face similar dangers. So we thank you for joining us. We're very pleased to be able to bring this to you today. It wraps up our live coverage of today's goodbye to Clermont County Sheriff's Deputy Bill Brewer.
And once again, we want to thank Daryl Hawkins. Thank you so much for being here. Dan Cott, Really, you've helped us kind of understand what we were seeing here and the impact Deputy Brewer's life had on the community.
It was our honor.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks
for being with us.